In the 2010s, the young adult market became a powerful force in the publishing industry. The Twilight Saga and the Hunger Games were the two series that came out on top. With such popularity, theme park integration these days becomes almost inevitable, which is exactly what has happened. You might be more familiar with the Hunger Games' slightly larger theme park presence, but a Twilight theme park? How could I have missed this, I hear you ask? Well, quite easily. Allow me to explain how a theme park in China became the only one to welcome the Cullens.
I know what you are.
Say it. Out loud. Say it.
Vampire.
The success of Harry Potter introduced an entire generation of children to the joys of reading, and as those readers grew older, they sought stories that reflected their evolving experiences. This growing demand sparked a boom in young adult literature, prompting bookstores around the world to dedicate entire sections to these in-between readers, not quite children, but not yet adults. With this surge came a wave of best-selling titles, many of which were quickly snapped up by Hollywood and transformed into major motion pictures. Some of these franchises fizzled out, but others were able to stake their claim amongst the most popular film franchises of all time. Those of course being the already mentioned Twilight Saga and Hunger Games. The Twilight Saga arrived on the scene first. Published in 2005, few could have predicted the cultural phenomenon Stephenie Meyer's book series would become. The story of Bella Swan and Edward Cullen captivated a global audience, spawning a blockbuster film series and a fervent fanbase. By the late 2000s, the Twilight Saga had become a household name, with over 160 million copies of the book sold worldwide and the film series grossing over $3.3 billion globally. The franchise sparked a new wave of vampire pop culture, with the absolute hit that was the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opening up at Universal Orlando in 2010. Many began to speculate if Twilight would be the next book-to-movie franchise to be welcomed into a theme park. Yet, despite its soaring popularity, Twilight never received the kind of elaborate, dedicated land during the height of the franchise's popularity. As the decade progressed, the dominating YA genre shifted gears from the fantastical allure of the supernatural to the gritty intensity of dystopian futures. Leading this way was Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games, which became a cultural juggernaut. The story of Katniss Everdeen, a teenage girl forced to fight for survival in a televised deathmatch, orchestrated by a totalitarian regime, resonated deeply with readers. Its themes of rebellion, inequality, and resistance struck a chord with a generation growing more socially and politically aware. The Hunger Games trilogy, followed closely by other dystopian series such as Divergent and The Maze Runner, cemented the dominance of this trend. Film adaptations of these stories brought an even wider audience to the genre, and dystopian YA fiction became a hallmark of the 2010s. Together, the back-to-back waves of paranormal romance and dystopian fiction not only defined the YA genre for an entire decade, but also demonstrated its power to shape broader pop culture. As two of the most popular franchises of all time, some kind of theme park presence was basically an inevitability. Save for those tangled up in complicated licensing agreements, Lord of the Rings, pretty much every popular franchise has found its way into a theme park. With this largely being thanks to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter proving the power of putting IP in theme parks, you might think that the book-to-movie franchises that followed would be the obvious place for theme parks to look next. Sure, Twilight is essentially a romance franchise, and these aren't so at home within a theme park. But still, there are enough glaringly obvious experiences that could be turned into attractions from these films. At least from my perspective, as someone who knows the films embarrassingly well. Actually no, I take that back. As someone who is proud to know the films so well. Anyway, just off the top of my head, who hasn't wanted to spider-monkey their way through Forks, Washington, cliff dive with Bella, transform into a wolf, battle the Volturi, drive in Bella's truck, or of course, play vampire baseball? I know some of these sound a bit silly, but let's compare them to some of the other IP franchise attractions that we've got. Sure, flying the Millennium Falcon or riding a Gringotts minecart is obvious, but do you know what isn't so obvious? Flying on an enchanted bookcase through Hogwarts Castle, or riding in a slow-moving vehicle past some Fast and Furious scenes. Okay, maybe that one is not such such a good example to bring up. But anyway, if a park wanted to make an attraction out of the Twilight Saga, they easily could. The Hunger Games, with its dark subject matter, might seem like an even odder fit. But Harry Potter is hardly all rainbows and unicorns, and neither is Star Wars, the franchise Disney chose to bring to their parks in order to compete with Potter. And anyway, no matter what you think, this is a pointless conversation to have in this video, as the Hunger Games did eventually find its way into a park. Dark subject matter be damned. Both Twilight and the Hunger Games are products of Lionsgate. Well, as is often forgotten, Twilight actually began as an independent film made by a small movie studio called Summit Entertainment, a company that Lionsgate would buy in 2012. In the early 2010s, when these two franchises really dominated culture, Lionsgate were not theme park giants in the same way as other movie studios like Universal, Disney, and even Warner Brothers. So the likelihood of seeing these franchises come to parks did feel low. But back in 2009, Lionsgate had licensed their Saw franchise to Thorpe Park for Saw the Ride. Aside from being one of my favourite themed roller coasters, this showed that Lionsgate had some interest in getting involved in the theme park game. But still, building a major American theme park did not seem like a financially wise decision for the company. But when Dubai began to try to build its own theme park market, Lionsgate actually did get involved in a major way. At the end of 2016, MotionGate Dubai opened up, a theme park which was a new iteration in a long line of movie studio themed parks. But unlike those that preceded, this park chose to focus on not one but 3 movie studios, those being DreamWorks Animation, Columbia Pictures, and Lionsgate. This Lionsgate area would be home to the world's very first The Hunger Games theme park land.
I'm Caesar Flickerman, but you already knew that. Are you ready for more action at MotionGate Dubai?
Inspired by the Hunger Games, experience exhilarating speeds at the Capital Bullet Train.
We are waiting for you.
The first ever World of the Hunger Games.
Developed by Falcon's creative group, the World of the Hunger Games welcomed guests into District 12, the impoverished area where Katniss Everdeen grew up, not a fictional place that many people have really dreamed of visiting. Thus, the creative team decided to design the surface of the land as if shown through the propaganda of the capital, but also opted to hide more sinister elements underneath this surface. To show this, bright posters are plastered throughout, and cheerful videos with upbeat music are played in the land and the ride's queue lines. Some of these videos actually feature specially filmed footage of Stanley Tucci reprising his role as Caesar Flickerman. This propaganda stops the land from feeling too dull, but it also allows the dark narrative to remain present. Within the land you will find a replica of Hall of Justice, the building where the reapings take place, Peter's Bakery, a terribly themed snack cart, and statues referencing each district, a Mockingjay pin, and the three-finger salute to the rebellion. A narratively odd one to work out, but perhaps these statues were put up by the Capitol in order to try to co-opt these symbols. Or perhaps they were just put up by MotionGate to be photo ops for guests. The land is home to 2 attractions, one of which is actually pretty good, and one of which, well, isn't. Let's start with the good. That would be the Capital Bullet Train, a mat launch coaster. The ride is a semi-shuttle roller coaster with one vertical rollback element. Theming within the queue is actually pretty good. There's a full-size recreation of the bullet train from the films and a few Peacekeeper figures. The coaster itself isn't world-class, but it's better than the poor scream rides that litter the rest of the park. Speaking of which, the bad is the Pan Am Aerial Tour. This is a 3D flight simulator over the Capitol. The best aspect of this ride is that it features brand new footage of Elizabeth Banks as Effie Trinket and Mahershala Ali as Colonel Boggs. On this ride, we're here for a casual aerial tour of Pan Am. That is, until Boggs interrupts the pre-show to reveal that it's all Capitol propaganda. The plan, fly from District 12 to the Capitol and visit each district. But, spoiler alert, this plan goes wrong, and suddenly we're dodging tracker jackers and black tar. Eventually, the ride ends by crashing into District 13, where Boggs and the rebels welcome us with the three-finger salute. For fans of the franchise, the plot is fun, but unfortunately, the quality just isn't there. The screen is pretty dim, and the simulator's movement is incredibly lackluster. This attraction exits into the Pan Am Supply Company, the land's gift shop. This store is full of exclusive Hunger Games merchandise. As far as entertainment goes, MotionGate isn't the most reliable park for this, and has largely removed most from the land. But in the past, there have been meet and greets with Peacekeepers, and a musical number performed by District 12 coal miners. Another odd bit of imagined propaganda, I guess. This remained the only theme park to have the Hunger Games until Lionsgate Entertainment World opened, in 2019 in China. Billed as the world's first vertical theme park, this is a 5.5-acre indoor theme park cum dining and shopping centre. Smaller than a traditional theme park, the park uses technology-heavy attractions to create immersive experiences with a lower construction cost. The theme park portion is made up of various Lionsgate IPs, mostly targeted at young adults rather than families. These IPs are Now You See Me, Escape Plan, Gods of Egypt, Divergent, The Hunger Games, and of course, the Twilight Saga. Yes, this park would not only be the second to receive the Hunger Games, but the very first to ever welcome the Twilight Saga. Despite the franchise's massive success, prior to this, its presence in major theme parks had been non-existent. Well, save for when Scarefest Alton Towers was sponsored by Twilight New Moon in 2009, but this only led to a few posters and nothing more. Actually, just a quick note on this weird sponsorship: if anyone remembers any other Twilight or even the Hunger Games theme park sponsorships or weird tie-ins, please leave them in the comments for me to read over. Thank you. Anyways, back to Lionsgate Entertainment World. As the home of the Hunger Games and Twilight, this sounds like a dream park for anyone who enjoyed the 2010s YA boom. In fact, let's not ignore that yet another YA book-to-movie adaptation is also present here. That would be Divergent. Perhaps the strangest of all, as this franchise's success died out so quickly that the final planned film didn't even get to be made. For those interested, the only attractions it does have here, and in the entire world for that matter, are the Fear Simulator, a virtual reality walkthrough attraction that allows guests to walk between skyscrapers, escape a pitch-black maze, and stop a runaway train. And then there's also the Chasm Challenge course, a large climbing course with practically no theming. Unlike at Motion Gate, the Hunger Games area here welcomes guests into the luxurious capital. There's very little theming here again, save for a few banners and a photo opportunity featuring President Snow's throne. The Hunger Games area contains only one ride, but there is one other themed experience. That would be the Capital Couture and Cosmetics, a shop offering Capital-inspired fashion and salon services, with a huge image of Sinner on the wall. The only ride in this area is Mockingjay Flight Rebel Escape, a 3D simulator attraction. Guests enter through a Capital storefront owned by Tigris, harkening back to this character's supporting role in the rebellion during Mockingjay. The ride follows a storyline in which guests travel through Capitol tunnels and streets while avoiding traps such as demon rats and trackerjackers. It concludes with a hovercraft escape to District 13. This ride has a slightly different setup, but for the most part, its narrative is incredibly similar to Motion Gate's Pan Am aerial tour. Dining options include the Capital Confectionery, a candy store that offers a range of sweets, Peter's Bakery Cafe, named after Peter Malark's District 12 bakery, presented as a sleek modern bakery situated within the Capitol. And finally, there's the Capitol Banquet Hall, a sit-down restaurant serving elaborate meals, some of which feature a bit of theming, such as small Mockingjay symbols. While the Hunger Games section itself does not include any shows or entertainment, a stage in the central foyer of the park hosts performances throughout the day, and one of these performances is a Hunger Games-inspired Capitol fashion show. This show features dancers in Capitol-style costumes accompanied by peacekeepers. With this, it's now time to finally explore Twilight's presence within the park. The Twilight-themed floor is designed to represent Forks, Washington, the main setting of the Twilight series. The indoor environment supports a permanent nighttime effect, consistent with the town's grey portrayal in the film, hence why it's the perfect home for the sparkly Cullens. The area includes several photo opportunities, including Bella's truck, a Welcome to Forks sign, and a recreation of the gazebo from the final prom scene in the first Twilight film. More than just a photo op, the gazebo also functions as a performance space for a singing group called the Forks High School Glee Club. The group performs songs featured in the Twilight films, such as Decode by Paramore and 1,000 Years by Christina Perri. As someone whose entire music taste has been heavily influenced by the Twilight soundtracks, this sounds like an absolute dream come true. The Twilight area does not include any themed dining or retail locations, but it does feature 2 attractions. These are Bella's Journey and Midnight Ride. Midnight Ride is a virtual reality motorcycle ride set in the forests of Forks. The ride takes guests on a mission with Jacob Black, assisting the wolf pack in stopping vampire newborns in the forest. Personally, I don't think this attraction looks great, but it is actually award-winning, so who knows? Maybe it's managed to break the curse of terrible virtual reality attractions. Bella's Journey is a dark ride which allows guests to ride in vehicles that are themed after Bella's orange Chevy truck from the films. This attraction blends physical environments with CGI screen-based sequences featuring characters from the Twilight Saga. The ride begins in a pine-scented forest where Alice Cullen appears and warns us of a dangerous secret. Edward Cullen then reveals himself, sparkling in the sunlight. The experience transitions into a fast-paced forest sequence, representing Edward running with Bella on his back. From the treetops, Jacob Black is heard apologizing just before lightning and thunder signal the arrival of the Volturi. Edward, Alice, and Jacob then appear, and Edward urges Jacob to take Bella to higher ground. Addressing the rider directly, Edward says, "Bella, I will always be by your side to protect you." The Volturi then confront the group, and their leader, Aero, threatens the riders for knowing about vampires. A Volturi member attacks, but Edward intervenes to defend us riders. This leads to a chase down a mountain, after which Alice steps in and presents a vision to the Volturi, prompting their retreat. The ride concludes with a final scene showing Edward and Bella kissing in the forest. While neither of these attractions follow a narrative that is directly featured in the films, I'd estimate that they take place during the events of Eclipse. But really, none of this is that important. Bella's journey looks like one of the weirdest dart rides I've ever seen, and I've seen some weird ones. The mannequin-like figures are eerie enough to give me nightmares. Lionsgate Entertainment World is an unusual theme park that seems to have a heavy focus on virtual reality attractions. It's less like a theme park and more like, say, a Disney Quest or Japan's Driopolis. But at least for now, this is the only tiny sliver of Twilight theme park we have. In all honesty, it's hard to imagine this ever changing. Twilight may have had a bit of a resurgence thanks to many people retrospectively reanalyzing its popularity, but the franchise's glory days are long gone. The Hunger Games, with new books and films being released, is more relevant, but the odd choices made in the already existing lands showcase just how hard this franchise is to adapt into a theme park attraction. It seems unlikely that we will ever get any more Twilight or Hunger Games attractions, but I guess all we can do is wait and see. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on these theme park lands, or just let me know your dream Twilight or the Hunger Games attractions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check out some of my other videos and the links in the description.